This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Mosaic, a daily news program from Link TV, presents a selection of news reports from independent and state-controlled broadcasters from throughout the Middle East.
He said it could happen and is adamant. US President George Bush has insisted on his assessment that Middle East peace could happen this year, and that he's committed to coming back to the region to see it through. He made his remarks standing by Egyptian President Hosni Mubarak on the last leg of his 8-day tour to the region. Mubarak endorsed reaching a peace deal by the end of 2008. He's also reiterated his country's stance that the conflict between Israel and the Palestinians is fueling terrorism.
And I said I'm optimistic an agreement can be reached. And the reason I am is because I believe the leadership in Israel and the leadership of the Palestinians is committed to a two-state solution. And I know nations in the neighborhood are willing to help, particularly yourself. And I appreciate your strong, constructive support for the process. And I told the president I'm going to stay in, there's a wonder whether or not the American president, when he says something, whether he actually means it. When I say I'm coming back to stay engaged, I mean it. And when I say I'm optimistic we can get a deal done, I mean what I'm saying.
I've asserted during our discussions Egypt's stance, which backs the peace process, and how I look forward to President Bush continuing his follow-up on negotiations between Israel and the Palestinians. I've expressed my wishes that a peace deal is reached before the end of his term. I've also asserted that the Palestinian issue is at the heart of conflict in the Middle East and the gateway to containing all tension and the terrorism the world's been facing.
George Bush has now wrapped up his tour of the Middle East, and as he did so, the violence on the ground continues. In the West Bank, Israeli forces have killed a leader of Islamic Jihad. Walid Obeidi had been wanted by Israelis forces for years and died during a dawn raid on the town of Qabatia near the town of Jenin. And more raids have followed during the day in the West Bank, with Israeli forces clashing with stone-throwing youths. Israeli forces have been stepping up their raids in West Bank towns in search of suspected fighters. Meanwhile, in the Gaza Strip, the latest Israeli airstrike has left 3 Palestinians dead. It comes after a day of clashes on Tuesday, the bloodiest day of fighting since Hamas took control of the Strip last June. 18 Palestinians died, including the son of a powerful Hamas leader. And Hamas's political leader Khaled is laying the blame for the attacks firmly at the feet of the US president.
Bush did not come to the region to be a peacemaker. He came to launch war and to launch this bloodshed among the Palestinians. Bush is a warmonger. He is not a peacemaker. As to the Palestinian position, what is the answer? An official mourning or national mourning is not enough. This is what I would like to tell to our brothers in Ramallah. Denouncing the massacre is not enough.
The Syrian Information Minister Mohsen Bilal said that U.S. President George Bush, during his latest visit to the region, gave Israel the green light to continue a massacre of the Palestinian people.
President Bush's visit to the region gave a sign to start the bloody, painful and very sad massacre of the Palestinian people and their resistance. This, rather than give a sign to remove the apartheid separation wall, lift the boycott and remove the settlements, as is the responsibility of the sponsor of the peace process, which we want to believe started at the Annapolis meeting.
The head of the right-wing Beituna party in Israel, Avigdor Lieberman, announced that the party will withdraw from the Israeli government to protest the start of final status negotiations between Israel and the Palestinian Liberation Organization. Lieberman's party holds 11 seats in the Israeli Knesset. However, this decision does not affect the majority status that Olmert's government enjoys. Olmert continues to have a majority with 67 votes in the Knesset. With us from Jerusalem is Al Jazeera's correspondent Elias Karam. Elias, what are the effects of Lieberman withdrawing from the government?
بداية الأصداء هي هجوم من قبل النواب العرب داخل الكنيست الإسرائيلي على تصريحات ليبرمان.
First, the Arab members in the Israeli Knesset have attacked the statement issued by Lieberman, describing them as being more dangerous than Mr. Hassan Nasrallah and Khaled Mish'al. They consider this a violation of their rights and a green light for an attack on their lives. They are making a wide-scale attack against him in the Israeli Knesset and described him as a racist and a fascist. He said during a press conference that he thinks that solution with the Palestinians is not based on land for peace, but rather an exchange of lands with its residents. This would mean Arab cities and villages inside Israel would be governed by the Palestinian Authority. This was totally rejected. The Israeli opposition on the right has praised this withdrawal because they believe it helps them and garners more votes in favor of moving up the date for the elections. They see this as the beginning of the end of Olmert's government.
يرحب أيضا باستقالة ليبرمان ويرى في هذه الخطوة مناسبة لكي يقوم هو بنفسه بدعم الحكومة الإسرائيلية لربما ويعطيها.
Meanwhile, the opposition on the left is also praising Lieberman's withdrawal and sees this step as appropriate so that it can support the Israeli government and perhaps by providing a lifesaver for the opposition in order to complete the negotiations with the Palestinians. So today, perhaps Olmert's government is enjoying wide support from various sides. The Israeli right opposition will support Olmert's government if Olmert decides to carry out a wide-scale military operation in the Gaza Strip. He will also get short-term support from the Israeli left, from the Meretz movement, and perhaps the Arab representatives if he makes progress in the negotiations with the Palestinians. Without a doubt, Lieberman's withdrawal today puts the Labour Party in an awkward position. It had threatened to withdraw from the Israeli government after the final release of the Vinograd report regarding the latest war on Lebanon. The report is expected to be released at the end of this month. Lieberman's withdrawal strengthened the chances that the Labour Party will remain in the Israeli Knesset because it will be difficult for it to withdraw from the government amidst a peace process, which Israel is trying to make look like is progressing with the Palestinian side. Right now, Olmert fears that Lieberman's withdrawal will lead to the withdrawal of the Chas movement, the Eastern Orthodox Party. Then Olmert will lose his majority and he will be forced to look for other votes from within the Knesset like the Western Orthodox Party, Yehdot Yatura, in addition to the Israeli left in the Knesset.
Thank you for these clarifications, Elias Karam from Jerusalem.
In today's top political story, is this the beginning of the end of the Olmert-led coalition? Israel Beitenu leader Avigdor Lieberman announced this morning that his party is resigning from the government and will immediately act to bring about early elections. Joining us now with more on the story is IBA's diplomatic correspondent Leah Zinder in our Tel Aviv studio. Welcome, Leah.
Yes, hi, Yochanan. As you say, Avigdor Lieberman surprised nobody when he announced today that he was pulling his 11-person Knesset faction out of the government and out of the coalition. At a press conference in the cabinet room in the Knesset, Avigdor Lieberman praised Prime Minister Olmert, saying they had differed on many issues, but that Olmert had always been honest with him. But he said he'd always stressed that he would do anything necessary to stop the Annapolis process, and that time was now. However, to many people it seemed that more than Annapolis, it was actually Winograd that was on Avigdor Lieberman's mind. He knew perfectly well that if he stayed in the government and the government fell over the Winograd report, his right-wing constituency would never forgive him for staying in the government government until the bitter end. And in fact, it was that right-wing constituency that Lieberman was addressing today as he blasted Israel's Arab citizens, saying that they were trying to destroy the country from within, and saying, in fact, that their Knesset members, like Ahmed Tibi, are worse than Khaled Mash'al and Hassan Nasrallah. We'll hear Tibi's response later in the broadcast. But in fact, to answer your question, Yochanan, is this the beginning of the Olmert-led government? Well, he still has a comfortable majority of 67 members in the Knesset, although Shas is under more and more pressure to resign. What Olmert did was, in fact, to raise the stakes in his winner-take-all poker game. He didn't try to change Lieberman's mind. He's trying to show Ehud Barak that he's so dedicated to the peace process that he will make it impossible for Ehud Barak to take Labour out of the coalition come January the 30th and publication of the Winograd report. And as for Avigdor Lieberman, just one more word about him. He made no bones about it from today, and starting tomorrow even more so. He said he will make every effort to bring down this government by every means at his disposal.
Returning now to the resignation of Israel Beitenu leader Avigdor Lieberman and its potential reverberations for the Olmert government. Aaron Weiner was at the Knesset and got these reactions today from 3 MKs to the dramatic developments.
I think Lieberman's decision shows us that this government is coming to an end. I myself will bring my bill to ask for an early election short time after the Winograd committee will publish its report. I expect Minister of Defense Barak to keep his word and to support that bill. And of course, Shas will support it as well if we will have the majority. So I believe that we can bring an early election in the end of 2008 or the beginning of 2009.
I think that after Lieberman's resigned from the government, this is the right time for Prime Minister Ehud Olmert to announce of his resigned also, because I don't believe that there is any chance that my party, Meretz party, will join the government when Ehud Olmert is the Prime Minister. He should resign because of his responsibility to the Lebanon war, and now it's a good time and a good opportunity to have a new government without elections, that Kadima will appoint someone else from their party and will join the government and will work toward peace process.
Lieberman is a fascist immigrant who is willing to kick out Arabs and Arab leaders from this country out. We were here before him and we will remain here long time after he will leave. This government is a bad government, but it is less racist and less fascist without Lieberman.
نتابع إذن هذا اللقاء ودائما مع السيد خالد مشعل. أبو الوليد.
We continue our interview with Khaled Mishal. Abu Walid, today we all understand the situation on the ground. Frankly, there has been an exchange of accusations between Fatah and Hamas. During one of my interviews with Abbas, the president said that Hamas carried out a coup d'etat against the Palestinian Authority. This was done with the help of Iran or through an Iranian campaign. Abbas also said that Hamas chose not to reconsider and take back its coup d'etat, and until it does so, he will not hold talks with it. Today, Khaled Mishal said that the Palestinian president is the one who turned his back on the Palestinian people. How can we resolve this problem? What are Hamas's preconditions to correct its mistake, if we were to consider what it did was a mistake? When will the negotiations start between the Palestinians?
طبعا للأسف التهمة في قصة ما جرى في غزة لم تحصر فقط في
Unfortunately, Iran was not the only country accused of helping Hamas in Gaza, but Syria and Qatar were accused as well. It's a strange formula linking these countries to what happened in Gaza. However, this is not worth a discussion. What did actually happen in Gaza? To examine the situation, we must look back in time. I'm willing to sit down with any Arab commentator or critic and argue the case with him if we were to talk about the past. Who was the one carrying out the coup d'etat against the Palestinian choice of democracy? who did not allow Hamas to rule since it achieved victory in 2006. Since then, they have imposed resolutions and measures against Hamas in order to undermine its authority and revoke its privileges. In addition, they gave cover to the blockade imposed on Hamas and fueled the security breakdown and carried out the instructions of General Dayton, who also didn't implement the Mecca Agreement, which we signed last year. I explained to the Saudi leadership what happened after the Mecca Agreement. We went to Mecca for one reason, which is not to go back until an agreement is reached. We took rather a decisive approach in the Mecca meeting. However, the sequence of events following the Mecca Agreement hampered our efforts. Many things took place after the Mecca Agreement, including the appointment of certain figures in the Palestinian National Security Council and the security chaos witnessed in Gaza. In addition, the Dayton's plan came after the Mecca Agreement. We know exactly what some in the presidential office and the Palestinian Authority have said about the relationship with Hamas. This took place during a time when we were all part of a national unity government. They gave the national unity government 3 months. Then they carried out a coup d'etat against it. I went to Cairo and met with the Egyptian leadership and President Mahmoud Abbas and warned them against the dangerous situation. I also told them what the warlords were doing in Gaza. However, no actual change has taken place on the ground, and this has brought the situation to this point.
You have been subjected to worse than this. What I mean is when Sheikh Ahmed Yassin was on the verge of death. When President Yasser Arafat was alive, the problems were deeper and more difficult. However, the movement at the time would say that it would sacrifice everything except national unity, and no one could draw it to fight internally within Palestine. The movement has withstood many problems, and it did not get drawn into internal fighting. What happened today? Is it because of the absence of Sheikh Ahmed Yassin? Has the absence of President Yasser Arafat made the movement no longer resilient, thus exploding like a volcano?
May God have mercy on Sheikh Ahmed Yassin and our brother Abu Ammar. They were respected leaders who played historical roles. What happened is not because these leaders are no longer with us. Hamas has not changed or modified after the passing of Sheikh Ahmed Yassin. Hamas is an institution. It has its policies and code of ethics. It has not changed. To prove this, after the martyrdom of Sheikh Ahmed Yassin and when Abu Mazen became the president of the authority in the beginning of 2005, we gave Abu Mazen a cooling-off period with Israel. Did we give him confidence to respond to the Israelis? We did not trust the Israelis. We tried to work with them, but it was useless. We offered a cooling-off period in 2005 to help Abu Mazen. However, he himself acknowledged that Israel was not responding. The international community was not responding, which means Hamas was, is, and will continue its code of ethics to prohibit fighting despite all the severe repression in the West Bank. There is security coordination taking place today. A few days ago, our brother Hussein Abu Quaik and Farrouj Rumana were arrested by the Palestinian Authority and then they were released. A day later, Israel arrested them. There is security coordination. This happened with our brother Ahmadullah in Nablus, regrettably. Despite all this, we tell everyone that there should not be any military response against the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank. Some of our men consulted us and we told them whoever wants to fight must fight Israel.
Lebanon witnessed today 2 developments at the security and political levels. This news comes as the Lebanese authorities started to investigate the explosion that targeted a car belonging to the U.S. Embassy in the area of Dora. It also comes as the Secretary General of the Arab League, Amer Musa, returns to Beirut in an attempt to break the deadlock in the Lebanese political crisis. However, there appears to be little hope of finding a solution to the Lebanese crisis, especially considering the latest security breach in the country. Jamal reports from Beirut.
الدورة في الصباح الأول بعد الانفجار منطقة خالية إلا من جنود يطوقون المكان.
This is the area of Dora a day after the explosion. The area looks empty except for the few soldiers surrounding the scene of the blast, some loiterers, as well as several damaged vehicles including the targeted car. Meanwhile, Lebanese investigators are trying to find whether the attack was carried out by a booby-trapped car or by a roadside bomb that was planted in the area. What's known so far is that 3 bystanders, including 2 Lebanese and 1 Syrian, were killed in the blast. In addition, 26 people, including the driver of the targeted U.S. Embassy car, were wounded in the explosion.
وجودهم في المكان فضلا عن إصابة 26 بجروح مختلفة بينهم سائق السيارة التي كانت تقل عاملين في السفارة الأمريكية ببيروت.
The 2 officials who worked for the U.S. Embassy in Beirut were not hurt in the explosion. In another development, the Secretary General of the Arab League, Amer Musa, returned to Beirut in an attempt to mobilize efforts to resolve the Lebanese crisis on the basis of the Arab Initiative. Musa said that the Quarantina explosion will not alter his plan, which includes a meeting with Lebanese political rivals and a visit tomorrow to Damascus and then back to Beirut. Musa is expected to spend the next 48 hours trying to bridge the gap between the Lebanese rivals. However, all news developments and statements that preceded Musa's visit indicate that a solution is still far from reach, especially considering that only during an attack that you see the Lebanese come together.
ومنذ سنين لا يولد الإجماع السياسي إلا على الإدانة مرة كل انفجار.
In a recent security development, the head of the Athemia Awakening Council, Colonel Riyad al-Samarra'i, was killed in an explosion that targeted a Sunni endowment institution in the Seba Bakr neighborhood in northern Baghdad. In addition, 4 of Samarra'i's guards and 2 civilians were killed and 2 others were wounded in the blast.
Relative calm started to persist in Baghdad's neighborhoods after the emergence of what has become known as the US-backed Iraqi forces or the Tribal Awakening Council. The Iraq's Awakening Council has no mandate from foreign constituents and has a different agenda than that adopted by terrorist militias, which are trying hard to stir corruption in this beloved country.
The perpetrators are Iranian figures who came to the area to target the symbols of Athemia.
Today, the militias returned to Baghdad for one reason, which is to kill more Iraqi civilians and national leaders. This news comes after the head of the Athemia Awakening Council, Colonel Riyad al-Samarra'i, along with several of his companions, were killed in northern Baghdad. A suicide bomber strapped with an explosive belt blew himself up inside a compound of the Sunni Endowment Institution, killing al-Samarra'i, 4 of his companions, and 2 civilians, and injuring 27 endowment workers. As the frightened crowd started to exit the Sunni endowment compound, a roadside bomb exploded, spreading more fear and terror in the area.
Our brother, Colonel Riyad, was martyred today. Every one of us is Colonel Riyad. A conspiracy is being hatched against Iraq. There appears to be elements inside Iraq and in other neighboring countries taking part in this conspiracy. They don't want stability and security to return to Iraq.
The victim was a simple religious man working for the Sunni Endowment Institution. He left behind 3 children. A suicide bomber strapped with an explosive belt blew himself up inside the compound, killing nearly 20 people. God does not condone these acts. Isn't Iraq a country of freedom and unity?
In another development, the American occupation forces carried out raids on 5 homes in the Jihad neighborhood west of the Iraqi capital, Baghdad. More than 20 residents were arrested and several women and children were assaulted during the raids. In addition, some residents accused the occupation forces of stealing money and jewelry from their homes, speaking on condition of anonymity due to fear that they may get killed or arrested. The relatives of the detainees agreed to hold interviews conducted by Baghdad satellite channel.
The U.S. forces stormed into the house after dropping sound bombs on us. They broke the doors and furniture. They ordered everyone, including the children, out of the house. They stole mobile phones, money, and jewelry from our home. We stayed out on the streets in the cold from 1:30 a.m. to 6 a.m.
According to knowledgeable sources familiar with the Iraqi issue, the ultimate threat facing Iraq's stability is being waged by certain local groups with known regional agendas. It seems that the relative stability and calm witnessed recently in the Iraqi capital, Baghdad, are not what the dark forces of Iraq are lobbying for.
Adjusting workers' minimum wages has been a topic of discussion for several years. With people's growing awareness of today's current conditions, this topic is back on top of the list. Details in the following report.
Employees have always been concerned with the low wage and high living cost equation, which has resurfaced again as prices have soared.
120 Jordanian dinars don't do anything anymore.
My base salary is 140 Jordanian dinars, or actually 130. As a full-time employee working 12 hours a day, which is compulsory, we get paid 220 JDs a month. If a person misses a day, he does not get paid. He may even get fired immediately. Some companies sold their buses, which they use to transport workers. They offer 25 Jordanian dinars for transportation and call it extra pay. But transportation cost me 50 JDs.
We ask for help from anyone, particularly private companies, to raise our wages. Sometimes we have to go to our neighbors to ask for money. Asking this person and that, it's just not enough. We ask for a raise, but what can we do? We just leave it to God.
In commenting on these opinions, employers continue to compare between local and migrant workers, giving their own justifications for the current salaries.
We're paying more than 110 Jordanian dinars to encourage local labor in the factory. This is in addition to the bonuses and the extra privileges we offer to help workers in their everyday life, which doesn't show in the base salary. From my long-term experience in this field, I found that the Jordanian worker cannot commit and does not have the proper work ethic like the migrant worker, sadly. We try to develop the abilities of the workers to help them and make them understand.
The Jordanian worker, however, offers a different explanation for employers preferring migrant workers.
A salary of 200 Jordanian dinars is not sufficient to cover my personal expenses, rent, electricity, and water. It's not like the migrant workers who live with 7 or 8 people, all of them together. Their conditions are different from the local person who lives with his family.
A salary of 110 or 120 Jordanian dinars is not enough. It does not buy anything.
The primary demand of employees working in the private sector is the issue of minimum wage. They ask for a raise in wages in a manner that makes it possible to fulfill their basic living expenses.
Get more news about the Middle East online at linktv.org/Mosaic. The Mosaic webpage offers a complete archive of Mosaic programs, program transcripts, the Mosaic video podcast, and the Mosaic Intelligence Report, a weekly analysis of the hottest stories from the Middle East. The views expressed on Mosaic are those of the participating broadcasters, not Link TV or its sponsors. production of Mosaic is made possible with the support of viewers like you. Thank you. This program was brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Link TV is the only U.S. television network devoted to global and national news, with uncompromising documentaries and diverse cultural programs. Programs which connect you to the world.